Oh my God, this is the most bloopers I've ever seen in my entire life. Super duper whopper supercalifragilisticexpialidocious extreme major cut. This time we made 150 bloopers. First of all, we made a color blooper. Second of all, we made a background color blooper. Third of all, we made a color blooper on the TVO text. Fourth of all, we made a fan-made language blooper. Fifth of all, the K is overflated. Sixth of all, we have a different letter. Seventh of all, we have a different number. Eighth of all, we have a different letter in the production's text. Ninth of all, there is a hascan on top of Super Cry Baby. 10th of all, big K from Pico Logo Bloopers is next to the kid's word. 11th of all, we have a fan-made Arabic letter. 12th of all, we have 2 Russian letters on the production's text. 13th of all, a different letter has been added. 14th of all, Aiden Gilly replaces Cure Twinkle. 15th of all, a different uppercase letter from the production's text has been added. 16th of all, we have a fan-made number. 17th of all, a fan-made letter has been added. 18th of all, we have a different number in the production's text. 19th of all, a Mr. letter is on top of the TVO text. 20th of all, a different symbol has been added. 21st of all, an uppercase classic recolored letter has been added left of the TVO text. 22nd of all, we have a different letter and it's still floating and it's overflated. 23rd of all, this time a fan-made Arabic letter has been added. 24th of all, this time we have a different recolored letter in the production's text. 25th of all, the SpyTheLogoEditor&AvrotrosFan logo is here. 26th of all, this time we have a different recolored letter and it's still floating. 27th of all, a classic letter has been added. 28th of all, the production's text N is overflated. 29th of all, this time a different letter has been added, but it's cursed. 30th of all, this time, we have a Pico letter and it's still floating. 31st of all, the Duolingo logo is here. 32nd of all, this time an Armenian uppercase letter has been added. 33rd of all, the Certiphone logo is here. 34th of all, a Russian letter from the TVO text has been added. 35th of all, we have a classic letter and it's still floating. 36th of all, this time an uppercase classic letter has been added. 37th of all, this time we have a different number from the TVO text and it's still floating. 38th of all, this time we have a fan-made number from the TVO text and it's still floating. 39th of all, a fan-made number has been added. 40th of all, we have a different uppercase letter and it's still floating. 41st of all, this time we have an image here. 42nd of all, we have a crushed image here. 43rd of all, we have a crushed different number. 44th of all, this time we have a SpyTheLogoEditor&AvrotrosFan number that's next to the production's text. 45th of all, a Pico letter has been added. 46th of all, this time we have a SpyTheLogoEditor&AvrotrosFan Russian letter and it's still floating. 47th of all, a different number has been added left of the production's text. 48th of all, we have a different number and it's still floating and it's overflated. 49th of all, O from Pico Logo Bloopers is next to Kana. 50th of all, we have an Arabic number and it's still floating. 51st of all, why is my clone doing here? 52nd of all, SD is on bottom of the production's text. 53rd of all, there is a SpyTheLogoEditor&AvrotrosFan letter on bottom of the production's text. 54th of all, O is red. 55th of all, this time we have a fan-made Arabic number and it's still floating. 56th of all, this time we have a classic letter and it's still floating, and it's overflated. 57th of all, this time we have an uppercase classic recolored letter and it's still floating and it's overflated. 58th of all, we have an uppercase classic recolored letter and it's still floating. 59th of all, we have a different language letter from the production's text and it's still floating. 60th of all, we have a different language letter from the TVO text and it's still floating. 61st of all, this time we have a Certiphone letter. 62nd of all, we have a different letter from the production's text and it's still floating. 63rd of all, this time we have a different number from the production's text and it's still floating. 64th of all, this time we have a classic recolored language letter and it's still floating. 65th of all, we have a Russian letter from the production's text and it's still floating. 66th of all, we have a different number but it's shocked and it's still floating. 67th of all, an Arabic letter has been added. 68th of all, we have a classic language letter and it's still floating. 69th of all, this time we have a Portuguese classic letter and it's still floating. 70th of all, the production's text I looks different. 71st of all, this time we have a Times Square numeral and it's still floating. 72nd of all, this time a different shape has been added to the bottom of the TVO text. 73rd of all, we have a different shape and it's still floating. 74th of all, why is there a line here? 75th of all, we have a crushed Arabic letter. 76th of all, this time we have a pica letter and it's still floating, but it's overflated. 77th of all, this time we have a classic recolored letter and it's still floating. 78th of all, we have a Zatarian letter and it's still floating. 79th of all, we have a Zatarian letter and it's still floating, and it's overflated. 80th of all, we have an Alpha Friends character and it's still floating. 81st of all, uppercase F from Pico Logo Bloopers is here. 82nd of all, we have a certophone letter and it's still floating. 83rd of all, we have a certophone letter and it's still floating, and it's overflated. 84th of all, we have a Shake Kids letter and it's still floating, and it's overflated. 85th of all, the Hardy and Nikki logo is here. 86th of all, this time we have a classic number and it's still floating. 87th of all, we have a different shape and it's still floating, and it's overflated. 88th of all, there is a US state here. 89th of all, we have a different month and it's still floating. 90th of all, we have a Greek letter and it's still floating. 91st of all, this time we have a Russian uppercase letter and it's still floating. 92nd of all, we have an Armenian letter and it's still floating. 93rd of all, we have an Armenian uppercase letter and it's still floating. 94th of all, why is Evil Red R doing here? 95th of all, this time we have a fan-made Greek letter and it's still floating. 96th of all, we have a Trainanese letter and it's still floating. 97th of all, we have a Russian letter from the TVO text and it's still floating. 98th of all, we have a crushed different symbol. 99th of all, we have a different symbol and it's still floating. 100th of all, this time we have a recolored pica letter and it's still floating. 101st of all, why is Mini G doing here? 102nd of all, this time we have a recolored Times Square numeral and it's still floating. 103rd of all, we have a crushed fan-made letter. 104th of all, we have a crushed different letter. 105th of all, this time a news text letter has been added. 106th of all, this time we have a news text letter and it's still floating. 107th of all, this time we have a Times Square numeral and it's still floating, and it's overflated. 108th of all, this time we have a recolored Times Square numeral and it's still floating, and it's overflated. 109th of all, this time we have a news text letter and it's still floating, and it's overflated. 110th of all, we have a Colonese letter and it's still floating. 111th of all, we have a crushed Shake Kids number. 112th of all, we have a crushed Shake Kids Russian letter. 113th of all, this time a Shake text letter has been added. 114th of all, this time we have a crushed Times Square numeral. 115th of all, this time we have a crushed recolored Times Square numeral. 116th of all, we have a crushed certophone letter. 117th of all, we have a crushed certophone letter and it's still floating. 118th of all, this time we have a crushed Zatarian letter. 119th of all, we have a crushed different language letter. 120th of all, we made a font blooper. 121st of all, there is a Hardy and Nikki, Imaginations of Discovery icon here. 122nd of all, we have a character design and it's still floating. 123rd of all, we have a crushed pica letter. 124th of all, this time we have a recolored Greek letter and it's still floating. 125th of all, we have a crushed Greek letter. 126th of all, we have a Hebrew letter and it's still floating. 127th of all, we have a crushed Hebrew letter and it's still floating. 128th of all, this time we have a recolored Hebrew letter and it's still floating. 129th of all, we have a crushed recolored Hebrew letter. 130th of all, we have a crushed pica letter and it's still floating. 131st of all, this time we have a Shake Kids fan-made Russian letter and it's still floating. 132nd of all, the 2026 Seven Clouds Enterprises logo is here. 133rd of all, we have a recolored Arabic letter and it's still floating. 134th of all, this time we have a fan-made Zatarian letter and it's still floating. 135th of all, we have a Shake Kids Spanish letter and it's still floating. 136th of all, the Delta Entertainment logo is here. 137th of all, we have a crushed Shake text letter and it's still floating. 138th of all, the Aiden TV logo is here. 139th of all, This time a different letter has been added, but it's in the dystopia style. 140th of all, we made a color blooper on the production's text. 141st of all, this time we have a crushed, fan-made letter has been added and it's still floating. 142nd of all, this time we have a recolored fan-made letter and it's still floating. 143rd of all, this time we have a recolored Russian letter and it's still floating. 144th of all, this time we have a crushed recolored Russian letter. 145th of all, we have a different symbol from the production's text and it's still floating. 146th of all, we have a different symbol from the TVO text and it's still floating. 147th of all, we have a different uppercase letter from the TVO text and it's still floating. 148th of all, this time a currency symbol has been added. 149th of all, we have a currency symbol and it's still floating. And 150th of all, we made a crazy blooper. This time we made 150 bloopers at once.
Wah, wah, wah.